All right, welcome back. Very quickly, for the teachers in the audience who came from the local area, I just want to remind you all to please check in with either myself or our wonderful panel moderator, Sandra McConnell, just so we can make sure that we get you your thanks. So anyways, we have one last talk and then our closing keynote, and I'm excited about both of those. When I was in graduate school recently, I read a lot of very doom and gloom articles about how technology in the classroom is just not the revolutionary change that was promised. It's kind of letting us all down and so on. I think we can safely say that all of our speakers today have shown that that is not true. But our next speaker in particular, Dr. Craig Blewett, has gone in depth on how to create truly transformative instruction with technology. So please welcome Craig.
Thanks. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is. Lovely to be here. And my name is Craig, and what an act to follow up on everything that we've seen happening today. I'm hoping to bring some of it together in my presentation. This is where I come from. The east coast of Southern Africa. For those of you who don't know, South Africa is on the south of Africa. Not everyone knows that. And it's been lovely to come all the way across to your little island here, or whatever it is, continent, North America, and to spend an incredible time with everyone here at Edmodo, and Edmodo conference specifically. I want us to rethink our classroom, and essentially that's what we've been doing the whole day. But sometimes the way we go about rethinking our classroom tends to be a little bit, well, more and not a lot of thinking. And as a result of that, some really strange things happen. Now, I've been passionate about rethinking how we teach for years. So probably for the last 40, 50, 60, 70 years I've been teaching, I have been constantly trying to understand, how do we do this better? How do we connect with the students? And we've seen the speakers talk about this. How do we engage our learners? And I've explored all sorts of fascinating spaces. We spent quite a few years in a space called Second Life, building these 3D virtual worlds, because I thought this was nirvana for the students. This game-like space would just transform how they taught and learned. And then from there, we explored everything from Google to Facebook to Snapchat to whatever. There's just so many environments that we can explore. But the problem is, things just didn't seem to work out like I expected them to work out. And thankfully, I realized I'm not alone, because constantly I would see that it wasn't only me who was failing in the classroom. There also seemed to be failures reported all the time in the media. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Los Angeles iPad program. $1 billion down the tubes didn't work. Now, that got me thinking, if I'm in this little southern tip of Africa, where lions and elephants roam around our streets and we have no electricity, just checking if you believe that. No, that's not the case. But the point is, we're not Los Angeles. We don't have Apple on our doorstep and thousands of iPads. If they're not getting it right in Los Angeles with the great tech companies, with these great first world schools, what chance do I have of getting it right? And so increasingly we see these stories about technology not working. But the worst part is this. EdTech's failing, and more schools are like, hey, we're coming too. And it doesn't matter when there's more doom stories. More and more schools say, no, we want to follow you. And for some reason, we all seem to be going over this precipice. Now, I don't know whether it's just the sort of mindset that we have, that we like those little animals. What are they? Those ones that run over the cliffs all together. Lemmings, those are the ones, yes, little lemmings, that we just follow regardless. And there is no doubt that there is a lot of pressure on us to follow the Joneses, to follow the school next door. Well, I needed to try and understand what was going wrong, because in the midst of all the doom and gloom stories, I was hearing stories like we were hearing today. But it's like hit and miss. How is it that these incredible teachers who we've heard today have got amazing stories, yet at the same time, I'm seeing research and news headlines telling me it doesn't work? This doesn't make sense. Well, my eureka happened some time ago. And I call this my Edmodo Factor because it sort of warped my teaching reality. If you understand the space-time continuum, Edmodo came and it bent things and it changed the way I thought about things. Because Edmodo was a different way of doing things. It was me communicating. That's what the MC stands for in the formula. Edmodo equals me communicating to the power of 2. It's communication on steroids. It's where Einstein got his formula from, or the other way around. The power of Edmodo, there was something in it that was transforming. Now, we've got to understand something huge has happened in the last few years that we may not actually have consciously thought about. Now, back in the day, this is before you were born. This was probably 3,000 years ago, and I don't think most of you don't look like you're around then. Back in the day, when we wanted to learn, what we did is we sat around in little circles and we chatted because there was no way to really store content. It was called Socratic dialogue, Socratic learning. And then along came a guy by the name of Gutenberg, and he invented a thing that was called the printing press. And all of a sudden, content could be stored and easily replicated. And learning changed from Socratic to didactic, where we are learning through instruction, what we're doing now. I stand and talk, you sit and bluff, you listening. Okay, and most of you are hopefully probably on your laptop and your tablet and various other things, doing other things anyway. But that's what's happened to learning. It moved from Socratic to didactic, from this active engagement to a more passive form of engagement, until very recently there was another major invention, and that was the World Wide Web. And what is the World Wide Web all about? It's all about connection, and it's causing a move back to what I call Socratic 2.0. Our students are born in an era where it's all about communication, social networks. It's about socializing. It's about conversation. It's about communication. Yet what is happening? A lot of our teaching remains here. Yet this is the era. This is the way they connect and communicate. And so we are having this push from our students to get back to a Socratic style of engagement and learning. Well, when I first came across Edmodo back in 2010, I had tried many different platforms, and I constantly try every new platform that I could get my hands on to see what's going on. Well, I came across Edmodo, and we tried it, and I started getting comments like this from my students. This is amazing. I wish all our courses were on here. And this is another student posting, dude, I use the mobile app. It's just like Facebook. Cavishin said, is really feeling for a... Wait, no, this isn't Facebook. Messing around, bluffing that he's about to post a status update on here. I was a bit slow in understanding what they were saying, but they were saying that this space made them feel like they were in the place they felt very comfortable, which was Facebook. Because the bottom line is, Facebook has altered how we do things. 1.5 billion people are in that space. It's changed how we connect, how we socialize, how we communicate. It's changed social networking, and it's impacted so many things. But all of a sudden, what Edmodo was doing for education was taking, stealing, borrowing, begging, I don't care what, those principles that were authentic to the students and putting them into a learning space. And so Facebook, in a way, was warping our reality. And so I then set out on a journey to try and understand learning, and I put the F word that you never use in education, Facebook and learning. You never put those words together. So learning in a Facebook environment, when I had to try and propose that, it was like, you're doing what? You can't put Facebook and do a PhD on that. It's ridiculous. The writing is on the wall. But what I was trying to understand is what is going on in my students' minds, what is going on with my students when they learn in conversation-based environments like this. What's happening? How are they doing it? Because if we can tap into that, we can tailor our teaching to better associate with their style of learning. Now, the problem is you can't ask them because they don't know. I can't go and say, so how do you learn in social networks? Huh? And then they stare at you and they tweet a few things. They don't know because they were born in this space. It's like when you know how to drive, it's hard to teach someone else to drive because you can't remember how you just do it. It's sort of this unconscious competence. And so I immersed myself in Facebook. I became a Saba ethnographer, if you know what that means. I lived with the pygmies in this Facebook environment and watched and observed for months and months and months and months, and it got thousands and thousands of pages of data, and then try to have to make sense of this. And so this is where the thinking began, trying to understand how do we learn in this modern age. Right, so here's your chance. Raise your hand, and you're at home. I can see you. You in your gown, that's so embarrassing. Yeah, you, on the couch. Yeah. Okay, that's better. Right, raise your hand if you can see what's wrong there. Yeah, we've got a couple. You guys have seen this for hours. Yeah, come on. It's the easiest problem out. What's wrong with the rest of you? Oh, man. There's always the stupid ones, but just raise your hand anyway so you don't feel stupid. Right, this is a great example of what I want to illustrate. You look at that and you say, is it the colors? It must be in the colors. Maybe there's a number missing. Maybe it's the spacing of the numbers. Maybe it's the font change. What is it? And you miss. It's something so obvious it's going to irritate you when I tell you. What are you missing seeing? I'm going to give you 5 seconds because when I tell you, you're going to be very depressed. 4, 3, 1, 0. Right. Can you find the mistake? You see the double the. Oh, man, obviously. I should have seen it, of course. Right, we don't see things that are obvious. We don't see things that are right in our face sometimes. It's just too obvious. And that's exactly what is happening when it comes to our use of technology in the classroom. There is something going on that is so obvious, we don't see it. And those are the hardest things to see. And it took me many years to finally see it. I may be a slow learner, and maybe some have already seen this, but I'm sharing my slow learning story with you. Right, and here's the problem. I call it quite simply the copy-paste problem. We all love copy-paste because it works so well. Your students at your schools copy content and paste it for you to, and then submit it. So they love it as well. But copy-paste is how the web works and how our world works. But this is what we did. I saw lecture theatres, and I thought, you know what? I can do better than that. So I copied the lecture theatre, and I pasted it and created a virtual version of the lecture theatre. Like, wow, that's so amazing. Isn't that incredible? No, it was absolutely useless. My students, as little avatars, there's actually me, had to navigate their little avatars to sit on their seats. It took them about 20 minutes to all be seated, and then they were flying, and there was just chaos. And in the front, I put up a PowerPoint show, and I pressed the button. It took about 4 minutes for it to go glunk and move over. And then this is the first, and then the lesson was over. And I thought, well, why didn't I just email them the slides? What was I doing? How did this help? Well, I love this one. Why have a blackboard when you can have a smartboard and you write the same things on the smartboard? And in fact, I've been hearing this week, some people just shine their data projector onto the smartboard because it's nice for that. Nothing's changed between the blackboard, the whiteboard, and the smartboard. Oh, good. We don't need books because we've got e-books. What an incredible change you made in our classroom. And in fact, these are so cool because the pages even curl when you turn the pages. Nothing's changed. I have nothing against books. I'm not saying books are the problem. It's an illusion of change. We're just copying what we've always done and pasting it into the new environment. So here's my personal favorite. We don't have teachers. We copy them. We've got YouTube videos. So we record the teacher and show it to the class. And now that's technology. Because now they're watching it on a YouTube video. They're going to be as bored, whether you stand up here and speak to them or you make them watch it on a small screen. At least then they can probably fast forward you. But the bottom line, none of these, is there anything wrong with them? There's nothing wrong with smartboards or e-books or YouTube videos. Obviously, these are great technologies. But if all we are doing is copying the old and pasting the new, we're not making use of the affordances, of the opportunities of technology. Now, Edmodo flew me out your first class. I don't think the other presenters got that. But it's because I was going to do an incredible trick. The first trick I was going to do was to make half of you disappear, but then they said that wouldn't be good for them. So I've then tailored it down to a smaller trick. You know, you will never see this. This is incredible. And now everyone, even at home, all of you, yeah, you as well, all of you. Oh, now you've taken your shirt off. That's inappropriate for a conference like that. Okay, thanks. That's better. Right. All I want you to do is choose a card, but don't tell me whatever you do. Okay, or anyone, just choose a card. Okay, you got a card in your head, hold it in your head. Now look at this. Don't forget the card. Right, just a moment. Okay, there we go. I've removed your card. Your card is gone. Yep, your card is gone. That is mind control. I forced every single one of you to choose the same card just by me dropping certain words. Forced you to choose the same card and can remove your card from the pack. And I have to say, for every single person that's watching from Chile to Uzbekistan to Zimbabwe, wherever you are, isn't that incredible? Yeah, that's why I got the first class ticket. You don't see that, so I can make the Statue of Liberty disappear as well. So, now for some of you, you might have figured out my trick. Okay, it's not that good. But I think it's pretty impressive. It's actually, like any trick, it's an illusion. Because what actually happened is all the cards changed. Like, of course. That's why magicians never tell you their trick, because then it sounds so silly afterwards. It was an illusion. That's what tricks are. They are an illusion of something happening. And that is exactly what has taken place in our classrooms. There is an illusion of change, but not real change. It looks like we're doing something new. It looks like it's so different, but it isn't. So, in searching for the solution through my research, I realized something is missing. Now, for those of you who have kids at home who are very keen on baking, you might have the kid and they're very excited about baking, and so they grab a whole lot of egg and flour and sugar and cocoa and stick it in a thing, and they beat it up and put it in the oven, and they get a most beautiful disaster. You see, it doesn't matter how enthusiastic the kid is. It doesn't matter how good the equipment is. There's something missing that's causing that. Now, if you listen very carefully when I mentioned all the ingredients, I missed a very important one, which was baking powder. You see, without a recipe, the kid's not going to get it right. Even the top chefs in their minds have a basic recipe because they've spent so long doing these things. And that's where the problem lies when it comes to education technology. That formula is a problem. A great teacher, and there are many great teachers here and around the world, great technology, Edmodo, you're not going to find better, will not necessarily equate to great teaching. A great teacher plus great technology does not equal great teaching. There is something fundamentally missing. We need our teacher, absolutely. We need our technology, but we must have a pedagogy. We must have a recipe. If we don't have a recipe, it's hit and miss. That is why we are seeing stories. It's a failure, it's a disaster, and then I come here and I see, wow, but they got it right. What's the difference? They understand the pedagogy behind this. And the problem is for all of us, now, most of you look around the room, you're in your late 60s or 70s. When you went and studied as teachers, we didn't learn about technology and how to use it for teaching in the classroom. So we're guessing, we're finding our way, we're trying to understand how to do it. I came up with a model that's a very quick self-assessment for you to do in your teaching, the Educational Technology Assessment Model. And in fact, if you go to my website, there's actually a quiz you can do to actually do it in a little bit more detail. But basically, it's got two axes. The one is content. When you use your technology in the classroom for learning and teaching, is it around consumption or is it around production? And is the learning passive or active? Which basically means you end up with one of four options. Your teaching is all around your students being passive consumers. The second option is they're active consumers. The third is they're a passive producer. Or what I'm going to suggest is our objective is they are active producers. Let me give you an example. Using videos and ebooks, what are our students doing? They are passive consumers. They sit there and they consume content. What you're doing right now is in that quadrant. It is the most common form of teaching. Well, we say, well, we need to improve our games. So what do we do? Quite literally, we let the kids play games or apps, and they are active but don't produce anything. So they are active consumers. Some of us try and step out a little bit, and we might get into social networks, and they might do a few clicks and a like, or we might use a smartboard, but it tends to be very passive, although something may be produced. We want to end up there, where when our students are using technology, they are active producers. How do we get there? These tools are great, but if all they do is leave us in those quadrants, we are missing out on an amazing opportunity. Because what are you doing all the time when you're on technology? You are tweeting, you are sharing, you are commenting. That is active production. You're there, and we bring it into the classroom, and all of a sudden we leave them down there. So arising out of my research is what I call the activated classroom teaching model. And very simply, I've only got a short bit of time. I just want to quickly talk you through these layers. It starts with consumption. Now, I don't have to talk about consumption because you all know what that is. That's what you're doing now. But these levels here are where teaching transforms significantly. And what's been absolutely amazing as we've been going through these sessions, and I'll just make some comments as I go through, every single one of the presenters actually spoke about those layers, whether they realized it or not. And that is why they've been so successful. And so basically what happens from the model, we move from a low activated classroom to a high activated classroom. And so we move through these layers where we are getting involved in learning through curation, through conversation, correction, creation, and all the way up to chaos. And activity starts to increase as we go through each layer. Right, now this is going to require a little bit of a mind shift because that's what this new generation of learning is about. It's about thinking about things differently, which is not always that easy to do. So let's start with the layer of curation. Now, in the past, we would give our students pre-packaged content. So they arrive and you say, well, chapter 1 and chapter 2, that's for the lesson. Read it, we'll have a test afterwards. Why in the world do we want to do that when we have such amazing tools that let us curate content? We can pull content from just about anywhere. Our students are doing that all the time when they're using social media. They are pulling content from all sorts of spaces. And curating something we do all the time. Every time you go to the supermarket, and you're grabbing stuff and putting it in your little basket, that's curating. When you get dressed in the morning, what are you doing? Unless you've got one outfit, you're curating. Curating activates the brain. So rather than giving the students the content, we say, well, you go and find the content. You pull the content from different sources. And again, spaces like Edmodo, Flipboard, whatever tools you like, allow you to pull content into a single space. And Wendy and Jennifer earlier actually talked about that when they showed how the students pulled content together for their debate. What were they doing? Why was it successful? They were curating content, and that involved invoking your brain, starting to think. So that is curating content. Well, moving up to the next layer, and as we move up each layer, it gets a little bit more cognitively challenging. Conversation. We want to move from this sort of passive, what we're doing now, to conversation around content. Because conversation is active. As soon as we're sitting here, as soon as we have the opportunity for you to start asking questions, or we have a panel, what happens? You wake up. We'll give you all some beer and wine and put you in a circle. It doesn't matter if we've been going for 12 hours. You're like, and you can go all night. Why? Because you're having a conversation. And conversation is active. Conversation is a normal part of our life. Conversation is not only a normal part of our life, it's what we are doing online all the time. Conversation can take place anywhere. There are many, many amazing spaces. But actually, when we look at what Edmodo is doing, what is Edmodo all about? Edmodo is all about conversation. But conversation is built into anything, whether you're looking at Word and making comments, whether you're looking at a Skype chat, conversation is absolutely everywhere. And it is core. And to me, this is what has made Edmodo so successful. Because at its heart, it is built around a pedagogy of conversation. And the learning happens in the conversation. And it's absolutely huge. And again, just coming back to that, you remember Michelle talked about using Edmodo to give teachers and students a voice. What was she doing? She was using conversation as a pedagogy. Wendy and Jennifer talked about audience engagement in their debate. Remember, they could have a debate and the audience could get involved. Conversation as a pedagogy. Rashina talked about the importance of professional discussion around content. Conversation as a pedagogy. That's why they're up here as such amazing teachers, because they're using a pedagogy of conversation. We move up to the third layer, which is the layer of correction. For some reason, we are obsessed with things being right and wrong. And that's what teachers do. It's either right or wrong. That's what it is. It's either 0 or 1. We're very binary about it. But interestingly, when we look at the world we live in, the technology world, it's significantly different. Technology is not about correct. It's about correcting. Because actually, it's quite easy to fix mistakes. This presentation didn't miraculously appear in one shot. Change it. And if you were here yesterday, there were still presenters saying, can I make another tweak? And there were probably some still, mine's probably being changed right now. That's the power of technology. You can constantly correct. Why we're not using that as a tool in learning, because the research shows that learning through mistakes is a massively powerful approach. Yet we make our kids afraid of mistakes. And someone mentioned it, I think it was today or yesterday, I don't remember, all my times are now messed up, that there are teachers who don't want to make mistakes in front of the class. Because if we're not prepared to make mistakes, we're not prepared to encourage our children, our students to make mistakes. But learning through mistakes is how we learn. When you go skiing, any of you done skiing, you know, there was stuff on the snow? Right. You go skiing, it's your first time you're going to go skiing, you're an adult, and you're like 30 or 40 or 50 or 100 or whatever you get, and you get on those skis, and there's a little kid of about 2 or 1 or 0, and they're all next to you, you're all on the slopes, and you go, and it's all like quite dramatic, okay? And eventually, after like a day, you get onto the proper slopes, and you're like, and there comes that little kid, and he goes shooting past you and falls. He's like, wah! And you're like, ah. You know, half a day later, he's up on the black ground going, whoa. And you're like, man, and you're still going, how did you do that? Why? Because we didn't want to hurt ourselves. We didn't want to fall. We're too embarrassed, and so it takes longer to learn. Learning through correction is massive, and actually actively encouraging it as a pedagogy is absolutely huge. I love this. Stephanie said this. We allowed people to make mistakes. This is where we have the most powerful learning experiences. What was Stephanie doing? Why is she so successful? She was using a correction pedagogy. Alejandra said, well, it's talked about how she used polls and quizzes and self-analysis of data to allow learning through self-identity of weakness. So you can use polls, you can use whatever you like. So students can self-assess, find out what's wrong. Let them make mistakes. I want you to be wrong. Let them walk into your classroom and I say, make a mistake for me. What have you done to my teacher? Give them back to me. But it's such a powerful pedagogy, because once you encourage mistakes, you encourage the opportunity for students to learn through their failures, and they are more prepared to become vulnerable, because it's only in vulnerability that we have learning. And then we start moving up where it starts to get harder and harder. And as I move up my students through these layers, they start freaking out more and more. Because all those bottom 3, there's some content there already that you're working with. When you get to creation, it's the blank sheet syndrome. It's like staring at that blank sheet of paper to start your presentation for the Edmodo conference, and you've got nothing. Just look at the first screen and the flashing cursor. I'll start tomorrow. It's difficult to create from nothing. But we don't want consumption-based learning, because all that passive learning does is put people to sleep. There are so many exciting opportunities around creating content. Grab a video camera, hand it to your students. Why give them the content when they could go out and make a movie about the content? They love doing it. And in fact, some teachers tell me, when do you find time to do this? My students made they got quite innovative with it, and they made this whole song. It's like a rap thing. Okay, I've taken out the words, but they were actually starting to sing now, but they weren't going to have much of a career in that. Well, I didn't know. I didn't want licensing issues, and maybe they were going to be really successful. But Marjorie talked about, and Awona talked about the videos they created between the USA and Poland. That's why they were so successful. They got the kids to make videos. The kids were involved in a pedagogy of creation over and above conversation and all the other things they're involved in. Soon as you get your students involved in creating content, they are learning at such an incredible level. And the power of teaching and learning through conversation is absolutely huge. Then we move up to the highest level, and this is normally where the teachers run screaming out of the rooms, because they imagine that I'm talking about kids hanging from ceiling fans and running around smashing desks. The pedagogy of chaos. We come from a society that is obsessed with rules, of sequences of formulas. Life is a formula. You've got A and B and you'll get C. Life doesn't work like that outside of the classroom. You're trying to make a decision. There's too much data. There's too little data. There's conflicting data. There's missing data. We need to teach our students to operate in a world of overabundance, a world of confusion. Content's not the issue anymore. It's everywhere. It's ubiquitous. How do you make sense of the content is what's important. And so we've got to teach our students how to make sense of chaos. And Stephanie in her talk talked about, and she used those picto charts. And she gave students, had masses of information that had to consolidate together into one chart that made sense of something. Let's help our students to make sense of confusion. Let's use chaos as a pedagogy. Don't give it all to them. Give them too little. Give them too much. Give them confusing opinions. Now you make sense of it. And then cognitively, you get so invested. Yeah, what happens when you shake your head? If you start shaking your head, those wavy symbols all of a sudden, yeah, why are you all saying no to me? Some are saying yes, you know. You can choose the yes or the no, but if you move your head, that confusion actually becomes something. And that's what we need to do. We need to learn to look at stuff that at first glance looks like nothing. And out of that, induce sense and meaning, because that's the world our students are going to have to operate in. And so when we encourage a pedagogy of chaos purposefully, your students will hate it. I promise you. You're going to arrive there and say, yeah, there's a bit of stuff and that doesn't really make sense, but I want you to make sense of it. How? No, you figure that out. But once they've done it, the power of it is absolutely massive. And the sense of fulfillment, when you look at it and you go, wow, I came up with that out of all of that. It's incredible. And the cognitive investment is absolutely huge. So, these approaches, this activated classroom teaching model, which is essentially 5 levels of pedagogy that we can apply, have had a massive impact. And there's a lot of research around active learning. For example, Bullard's research showed that student performance and retention increased by doubled. What we're doing now, if I get you involved in it, you will double what you do. I did a nice little experiment I do with my teachers often. It's a little creating experiment. I give them a list of 10 words, and I say, go and take photographs of them. And then they come back. In fact, there's 2 lists. And they come back, and I say, well, that's the other list that the other group got. And they go, okay, cool. And then I take away both lists, and I say, write down the 10 words. The words that they took the photographs of, they can remember all of them almost in order. The other list, they can't remember any. I never told them to memorize anything. Yet they remembered the 10 words they took photographs of. Why? They were involved in the pedagogy of creation. They were active. Retention improves naturally without even trying. They were learning and remembering. Students in a traditional lecture course are 1.5 times more likely to fail compared to students in courses with active learning. And so we want our students to be involved. And so when I've used this, and I've used this approach, this activated classroom approach, trying to teach teachers, trying to help teachers develop a pedagogy around the tools. These are some of the things they're saying, how these things have changed, how they're approaching their learning, how they're approaching their teaching. Because all of a sudden there is a recipe that they can use. And when you've got a recipe, you're more likely to get that really tasty, delicious chocolate cake that you were hoping for. So, what's next? Well, you guys are amazing, and you've got an incredible tool, Edmodo. But that gap needs to be filled. And I'm hoping to help you with that, because you need an approach, you need a pedagogy. We don't want it to be hit or miss, but when we start to approach how we teach and think about the pedagogy, what underlies our teaching, we can transform it in an incredible way. So we want to be the happy teacher. Yes. And so I'm going to tell you about Edmodo. I just felt that sort of worked. For those of you interested, starting on the 15th of August to the 4th of September for 3 weeks, I'm going to be running an online MOOC, which will be quite intensive. So we're going to go through all of these pedagogies. I'm going to give you examples of all of these. I'm going to talk about it in quite a lot of detail. If you want to be part of it, you need to go to my site, activatedclassroom.com, and sign up there to join it. I'm hoping that it does take a bit of time to actually change some teachers' minds. I'm not saying you're stupid or anything, but it really is, it's a shift of mindset. And I need to show you, and it's going to be hosted in Edmodo, and we go through lots and lots of examples of how to do this. But it's all about a mindset change. Now, for those of you who join now, that's today and tomorrow, I've got a book that's coming out on this that should be out in the next 2 weeks. And those who sign up now in the next 2 days, I'm going to give them the book as well. And that really is comprehensive. That's got all the research in it as well about how you use this technology to transform your classroom. And it's exciting because I've worked with so many teachers around the world with this. And when I see the teachers, you know what it's like with your students. We're all students at some levels. When you see the eyes sparkle, and they go, yes! I was wondering why that was working or not working. It's so fulfilling. So it's fulfilling for me, and I hope it'll be fulfilling for those of you who get involved. So there really is a revolution that's going on. There is a revolution in technology. There's a revolution that's taking place in our classroom right now. It's happening whether we want to be part of it or not. The fact that you're here means you want to be part of it. The fact that you guys are out there, whether you're in your pajamas or however you are, if you've just woken up and you're in your suit and tie, driving to work, watching the stream. No, you shouldn't be doing that. But however, wherever you're watching it, we're aware there's a revolution. We just want to make it work. We don't fully understand, and we're all trying to figure it out. We're all trying to find our way. I haven't got it perfect. I'm going to tell you right up front. I will talk about in the course about the beta mindset. It's built into the pedagogy of correction. We're all trying to get it right, but we fail together, and we get better and better and better. So I invite you all to join me, or just go and browse around my website, and I've got a whole lot of other stuff and lots of free videos and stuff to tell you how to use this in Edmodo, etc. So thank you, Edmodo, especially for your amazing tool that actually started my whole journey. Thank you for all of you being here. Thank you for all of you guys who are out there wherever you're in the world, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right. Unsurprisingly, there's a lot of questions coming in. Everyone is very engaged with this. Do we have any questions here in the audience? Any live questions?
It's unlikely, because people like technology, to ask the question. There is a power issue here.
It's true.
That's why they ask online.
All right. So let's start with Elizabeth Skelton from Ohio. She's wondering what can be said to parents to help them understand that making mistakes is part of their child's mastery learning.
It's an excellent question. What happens when we try and change how we teach and when we try and change our pedagogy? And this is quite different. There are three major problems we face. Other teachers, it's four actually, school administration, students themselves, and the parents, which seems like you should give up at about this point. And part of it is, much as we sitting here as teachers learning about the importance of a new approach, understanding the importance of mistakes as part of teaching, we actually have to educate our parents that they actually have to hear the stuff where you've got to get them to watch a video on the importance. And there's some great videos. Again, if you go to my website, look under correction, you'll see some incredible videos from Stanford. People are doing work around maths there, math education, and they show you how mistakes are central to learning. So the only way really is about education, because our parents, like us, have come through a system of schooling that was all about it's right or it's wrong. And all the teachers I'm involved in hit the same snags. They don't give the kids content. They say, curate your own content. The parents are like, what? That's not learning. How can that be learning? Which chapters must Johnny learn? Yeah, again, it's all about starting to educate the parents. So it is a challenge. We've got to be prepared for it. But if you weren't up to the challenge, you wouldn't be here.
All right. And going along with that, Carol Callwood from the Virgin Islands wants to know, how do you deal with the administrator that, say, walks past your classroom and it's chaos? What do you do to, develop that relationship, make it clear that the learning is happening?
Yeah. Again, that's another classic one. As I said, you've got all these layers. You're going to get the administrator who's going to look at this and say, but the rows, in a sense, aren't neat. We're not following that. And I think part of that is it's a little bit of a risk, in a sense. And I have teachers say this: what happens if I try and it doesn't really work? You know what? That's true. But as teachers, that's what we've got to be prepared to do. And it's sometimes hard to say, well, they're going to come back on me and say, he's walking past my classroom. I thought I was noisy, one of your kids did badly. To me, there's no real simple answer to that. We've just got to, you can show them the evidence, you can show them how important these things are, you can show them the research, but at the end of the day, it is a bit of a risk that we're all going to take. And to me, teachers that love what they're doing are going to, we've seen it here, you're going to pick up the kid and put him in your car and take him to the ball game because you just know that's the right thing to do at this point in time. You're going to introduce that chaos into your classroom because you really believe it's the right thing to do. And I think ultimately what we're going to see increasingly as we change our view of how we use technology, we're going to increasingly see the evidence starting to become obvious. But there's always going to be detractors. And I think that's just something, it's the Robin Williams syndrome. You just got to sometimes stand on the desk and hope you don't get shown the door. Robin Williams, huh? You remember him, dead poets and all that. Yeah, movie. Just checking. Standard viewing for all teachers.
All right, do we have, just checking for live questions. So one of the things that really stuck with me from earlier today was when Stephanie mentioned that a lot of resistance often comes out of fear of the unknown, and I've seen that a lot when I'm coaching teachers on technology. That they're very scared of it because not familiar, and it's very high stakes for them to start trying new technology in a position where, you know, our students are on the line. It's very scary. So what would you recommend as a good, like, small first step that teachers can take toward your pedagogy if they're not ready to just, you know, dive in and be bombastic?
Okay. The whole idea of what I was talking about this pedagogy is you understand the layers. You can pick anything. The most obvious and the easiest is using something like Edmodo around conversation. Just to switch some of your content immediately, and we've seen great examples. And one of the most powerful things I've had is using debates and discussions. The students love it. And what we're trying to develop here is more than just content recall. Often people want evidence. How much do people remember? But is that what we're all about? It's much more than that. Deep learning is much more than that. It's about analysis and critique, and debating allows you to do that. And so to me, one of the obvious steps is say, right, here's a topic. Maybe what I'd like you to do is using curation, pull a bit of content together to warm up. You've got the next hour or 2 hours or however it's going to work. Tomorrow, we're going to have a debate, a discussion inside Edmodo about this. And it's incredible how enthusiastic they get. The power of using a space like Edmodo is we remove this thing. The problem is we've got a power differential here because it happens naturally when I was down there and the other guys were here. I didn't ask any questions. It's like, it's too scary. When I'm up here and you down there, you don't ask questions either. As soon as we have technology, it removes that. And so it gives a massive opportunity to engage through conversation and learning through conversation. So to me, that's a natural, easy way in, and it's so simple, and the students take it like a duck to water, is it? Oh no, it's not a duck to KFC, a chicken to KFC, whatever.
All right. So this next one comes from James Vaughn in Wisconsin. I think this is a great one that many of us will identify with. Do you find that there are still many students who prefer the sit and get method of delivery? He's saying that that's his biggest struggle as an active teacher. And I know I certainly experienced that with students being afraid to make that jump and to do the change. And if there wasn't like a very clear rubric of what to read and everything, how do you support the students?
Right. There's a great book by Dan Ariely, I think his name is, wrote Predictably Irrational. And he talks in his book about how we do things that are irrational. And one of the irrational things we sometimes do is we think, well, if you're going to have pain, because he was burnt as a child, the nurse's solution to him was just to rip the things off quickly. And it was just, actually the more sensible thing would be to remove it slowly. And it's exactly the same thing that happens in the classroom. The students are like, yeah, I'd rather do nothing, and then just before that exam, I'll figure it out. So I'll rather sit here passively for 6 months. Oh, there's an exam tomorrow. And then suffer. Okay, so that's a natural thing that we think that it would be better if we suffered in a short period. What they don't understand is when you are actively engaged, it isn't suffering even spread out. All of a sudden, you actually get so involved, you don't realize you're learning. And I agree, that's exactly what happens. And I've had it with a class just this last semester. We start in January like normal people should because the year starts in January. I don't know what you guys are doing starting in September. It's so confusing. But anyway, so we had our first semester started in January, and I used this whole approach. They've never experienced it, even though they are in a third-year university class, because they've been through traditional schooling, traditional instruction, all the way up. The first 3 weeks, like, what is going on? Like, I keep coming, so where's the content? Which chapters? No, you're going to find that. By the fourth week, when I put out the content, I remember getting a post from a whole lot of students. I am so looking forward to this. And there's no doubt it is a process. It's a process of our students being educated and changed, our administrators, our teachers, and our parents. And so it takes time. And we've got to be prepared for them to resist it because they like rivers, looking for the easiest way down the mountain, which is not necessarily the best way.
All right, so I think we're wrapping it up now. Thank you so much, Craig. This has been wonderful. Everyone, please applause.
Thank you very much.